You know, since the first one just went over so dang well, and I have so many tips to share, it stands to reason we'll be back here for a sequel. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including my coverage of turn-based strategy RPGs such as the phenomenal Sword of Convallaria, a like on this video, a subscription to the channel, and the consideration of joining the fine folks who directly support the channel via YouTube memberships and Patreon. We very much appreciate it. Links to that are in the description. Thank you so much. So, getting right into things here, the second part of my tips videos for Sword of Convallaria with 10 more solid options for us. First off, note that only some missions provide main mission progress. What does this mean? When you're looking at your various quests that are available to you on a week-to-week basis, only some of them will provide you progress towards whatever objective it currently is that you're working towards. Early on in the game, that's going to be maintaining stability in Convallaria itself, or garnering favor with one of the different factions, maybe working towards a specific goal for one of those factions, things like that. And you'll be able to see, based on this little icon here, that a mission will be giving you progress towards that objective. Other missions may just be for training, skills, gold, etc. And it doesn't hurt to take them, so long as you make sure that you are able to take enough of these missions in any given time limits that you have to progress your goal. Now, what's notable is that this means you can drag things out a little bit. If you want to work on getting some more gold to get some more training in, or you'd like to get some better skills on some new recruits, or you just need some materials to craft a new sword or accessory or anything along those lines, you can actually spend a little bit of time avoiding these quest progress missions where possible to build up some more resources. From what I've seen, there are only a couple of times where the story progresses without you filling up that threshold, or an event happens that fills it for you. And while that can happen, more often than not, you'll be given the chance to essentially do a little bit of grinding if you feel that your team needs it. So don't be afraid to dodge these missions, or on the flip side, if you're desperately trying to get that objective done, keep an eye out for these missions and make sure that you take them. Sometimes they'll just have the best rewards, just so you'll want to take it anyway, and if you aren't close to finishing the objective, I mean, that's fine, nothing wrong with that. And sometimes they're going to have garbage rewards anyway, so don't feel like you need to take it if you don't want to, unless your back is against the wall. Number 2, percent health attacks and skills that upgrade your basic attack are God tier. These are two particular upgrades you should be keeping an eye out for as you unlock more skills for your characters via skill rewards from the ends of quests, and they are going to be the bread and butter of how you start to build out a particular sort of job or class for a character, or a role, if you will, as you progress through the campaign. Percent health attacks are a particular favorite of mine, as they will just deal a percent of an enemy's health flat, piercing, no ifs, ands, or buts, and often will have some other benefits attached as well, such as poison, armor reduction, attack reduction, etc. Now, against bosses, this can be really strong, as bosses or just elite enemies obviously have more health than standard enemies, but it is worth noting that as you progress through the campaign, some bosses will show up that actually reduce the damage of percent health attacks. They're still good, as, you know, they'll get around things like block or other damage reduction effects, but they won't be just a guaranteed kill on big scary boss enemies if they have that sort of reduction. They're a great way for weaker characters to punch up above their weight class. They're a very strong option for non-attacking classes to have a damage dealing option, and they're just a reliable way to guarantee some damage getting in there if an enemy has really good physical or magical defense and you only really have one or the other. So they definitely are a very strong option to keep an eye out for. I highly recommend having a few on at least a couple of different characters. Also, speaking of skills that I highly recommend that you pick up, anything that is going to replace a character's basic attack is pretty much going to be an S tier pick. The reason for this is that all the character's basic attacks, any given character that you get, is a basic attack. Typically just average damage, no extra bonus effects, maybe inferior range, or it just doesn't really do a whole lot for you other than deal damage, which is great, obviously, but what if you had the option to attack twice, or to put poison on your attack, or to have lifesteal on your attack for your tank? There's a lot of options that I've seen out there already, and they are universally good picks whenever you have the option to take them. If there's not something else that's just absolutely cracked god tier lunacy that you want to pick over it, especially for attacking characters such as Fake Hall, or if you have any sort of like tanky sword and board type character that's going to be standing on the front lines. Those types of characters will really want to have higher damage and special effects on their basic attacks. Hell, I've even gotten a basic attack for my cleric that makes it so after she deals damage, her next healing spell heals for more. Like, there's just so much cool stuff that you can find. I highly recommend checking out these skills. And really, kind of as a 2.5, make sure that you're going in and actually equipping your new skills. This is something that I didn't realize at first when I was getting my new skills for characters, because early on, I had to get a new skill and it would automatically be equipped. Except for if you already have all of the slots that skill would go into filled up, it just puts it in your character's inventory, and then it sits there. You actually have to go into your character menu, go to their skill list, and equip the skill that you just got to make sure that you're actually able to use it. I went through more of the campaign than I'm comfortable with, really, not having some of these really powerful skills attached to my characters. So make sure that you're not missing out. You earned these skills, you chose your rewards to try and build out a role for a character. Make sure they're actually, using them. I think you'll be happier that way. Number 3. Recruit units for damage types and varied roles, as you will be swapping regularly. Especially as I've been getting further into the campaign, the number of activities that you're going to be taking on that are going to drain your character's stamina, and the number of characters you're going to be taking on missions, and as such, the number of characters that are going to be losing stamina, is going to increase pretty rapidly. I'm sure there's going to be a sort of end point where you're pretty much maxed out on how many characters you can be committing to a task any given week, but between dispatch missions, battles with thus far up to 6 characters, all of your various different trainings, all of your various different rest options, helping Beryl with her research, there's a lot going on, and you're going to lose stamina really quickly, especially if you have characters that are going to be resting because they're low on stamina. As such, you want to make sure that you have a wide variety of character types available to you, so you don't find yourself in a situation where you're trying to go into a battle or trying to take on maybe some sort of training mission or a barrel research mission, and you just don't have the leveled different class varieties that you need to find success. Now, of course, you might be saying, well, Tom, why do I need to worry about that? Any critical missions or quests, you can just take everyone out on, like they're not going to be stuck not being able to go on the mission just because they're resting. True. That's not the case for regular quests, and regular quests can get quite nasty, and also, if you want to be able to fulfill all of Beryl's different research missions day over day, week over week, you need to make sure that you have a variety of class types that are of level to be able to fulfill the requirements for said experiments. As such, if you see some decent characters in the tavern every time it refreshes, don't be afraid to pick them up. Yeah, you gotta spend money on it, sure, absolutely. But oftentimes these characters come leveled with good skills. Oftentimes they're of a better rarity than the characters that you have currently, so they're going to have better stats. So they're going to be a combat boon for you. They're going to be better for you for strategy, and it'll give you more options for your meta progression in the town of Convallaria itself. Number 5, we just mentioned them, but do please make sure that you are always fulfilling all of Beryl's experiments and requirements whenever possible in her Luxite workshop. If you're not aware, partway through the beginning stages of the campaign, you get access to Beryl the Witch, or Sorceress, or however you want to refer to her, based off of what faction you might be aligned with, and she starts doing experiments with Luxite to give you various different benefits. This largely all centers around your tactics points and the different tactics skills that you wind up having available to you. Starts off with your basic like strength and defense upgrades, scales up to placing miniature explosive barrels, getting the ability to teleport around, and getting limited time access to extremely powerful, once per mission typically, abilities on behalf of Beryl that she wants you to test. The various different experiments she wants you to perform typically involve either giving her a set amount of resources or, more importantly, having characters of particular classes and levels available to dedicate to her experiment to get some Luxite to perform more upgrades. This is why in the previous suggestion I mentioned that you should have as many different characters of different levels and classes as possible, because you never know when you're suddenly going to have a requirement to have a level 16 Seeker available within the next 2 weeks to be able to get a bunch of upgrade mats, and you want those upgrade mats because you want those tactics point upgrades. So it's very important to make sure that you're keeping enough characters on hand so you can do that. I really cannot emphasize enough how big of a deal having good tactics skills is. I'm going to be doing a separate video in a day or two here talking about a particularly nasty quest that I was actually able to kind of break and achieve a cool result on because I had put the time and effort into leveling up my tactics points and unlocking some really cool skills, which we're going to talk about in a second. So having the ability to actually fulfill these requirements for Barrel is an absolute boon, and I highly, highly recommend that you're able to do so. Speaking of that maneuverability skill, number 6, take maneuverability tactics via Barrel when possible. This is a fairly simple one, but like, guys, I can't overstate how powerful it is to be able to target any of your allies and teleport them 4 spaces from their current position over terrain, through impassable walls, out of line of sight, etc., and then also give them a heal when you do so. When you do this on someone's turn and have them target themselves, they are then still able to move after they take this action. So you are able to put yourself into some incredibly advantageous positions, get some big AoE attacks off, chase down a priority target to snipe them, move an ally away who might be in danger, give them a little bit of a heal, and let them run even further. There's just so many different options here. I can't imagine having to play without this tactic skill, and frankly, I'm scared for when I start my next run and no longer have it available to me. So if you have the option to pick up this skill or anything like this skill, it should pretty much be priority number 1 because you'll be able to pull off so many wacky tactics with it. There's a reason that in things like Fire Emblem, people laud the Warp Staff as the most busted item in the game, and so many people view it as the centerpiece of their strategy for difficult maps so that they can kind of subvert the expected map design. This is nowhere near as powerful as that. A 4-square warp is nowhere near as powerful as a 7 to 15 to infinite map warp, depending on which Fire Emblem game you're playing, but it's still incredibly powerful. Pick it up. Number 7, this one is a little bit of a meta suggestion, but you know, if you're an anti-gacha person, don't run away on this. All right, hear me out. Burn your summons before starting new campaign runs to get some fun new units. You can't change the units you bring to a campaign run once you start it. So, what does this mean? When you are going into a new run of the campaign, you're given the option to bring, as far as I know, a max of 3 of your characters that you have from the gacha side of the game into the campaign for you to use. They'll come in at level 1 with their base skills, and then any skills that you've unlocked for them, I've been told on the gacha side of things. I haven't done that myself yet, so that's hearsay, take it with a grain of salt, but they'll come in at level 1, fairly balanced. They'll still be powerful, especially if they're max star rank characters, but you'll be able to then use them for the rest of the campaign and kind of build your team around them. You know, if you have Faykal and Mytha, you know that you've got a solid sniper and you've got a solid frontline tank. So as you go through the campaign, you can recruit around that early on to round out your team more quickly. However, if you wind up getting resources that you want to spend on pulling characters in the gacha side of things and then get a really cool character, you won't be able to then retroactively go and swap them into your campaign by swapping out one of the other characters or anything like that. So, if you have the resource available and you are interested in pulling gacha characters to be able to bring them into your campaign, make sure that you do so before you start a run of said campaign, because otherwise you're going to be stuck not being able to use them for a good, fair while. And a lot of these characters are really fun and can change the way that you play at the start of a campaign just by having them available. I have Xavier in my run currently, and as a sort of AoE frontline DPS with a polearm, he's pretty awesome. I've definitely relied on him a lot for some of my big damage dealing. It's been a blast having him available. Number 8, put characters in rest whenever you have room. We talked previously about the importance of maintaining your stamina, and this is something to emphasize here. You don't just want to be putting a character into the Haven to rest when they're at 50% stamina and you'll get the max amount available, right? Putting characters into rest is free. You don't have to pay anything. There's no resource that you're committing to that action. You just lose access to them for a little while for regular quests and then other things like training and whatnot. You never know when you're going to find yourself in a situation where you lose a bunch of stamina. Maybe you have a bunch of characters get downed on a mission and they all lose 40%, or maybe you have to dedicate some of your best characters to Barrel's Experiments and they lose 40%, or maybe you just hit a bunch of missions in a row where you have a lot of characters that you can field, and across your army you lose a good chunk of stamina. By making sure that you're putting a character into the Haven, even if they only have 80% stamina, you'll still make sure that you have more characters maxed out than you would if you just otherwise kind of let them dangle, especially if you're not doing anything else with them. Of course, you know, if you have a character with a lot of stamina remaining, prioritize things like training or barrels experiments, dispatch missions. Sure, that's fine. But if they're not doing anything else and you got room in the Haven, there's literally no reason not to shove them in there unless you're going to need that given character specifically for the next quest you go on right now. Keep an eye out for that type of stuff, sure, but you can always pull them out of the Haven for free if you need to. So, like, get your characters the rest that they need. They deserve it. Number 9, prioritize missions that give skills as rewards. We kind of mentioned this at the top, but when you're going through your available quest lists, make sure you're always paying attention to the rewards that are available and targeting ones, especially early, that are going to give you good skills. Any and every character that you have has so much room for improvement with either just filling out their skill slots, getting reaction skills, replacing their basic attack, getting lower level early game skills, and then replacing them down the line with higher level versions or just more powerful skills in general. There's pretty much always room to improve from what I've seen thus far, so getting the option to get a skill for a character after a mission is huge. And remember, of all the characters that you're going to have, a mission, more likely than not, is going to give you one skill, which you will then only have applied to 3 of your characters that you've deployed, and then you have to choose one character to get the randomly selected skill that they are able to learn. It takes a long time to be able to build up these characters. You need a lot of skills, and yes, you can do training in this yard as well, but like, this is free, right? Take advantage of that, especially if they're high-level gold or better skills. Those are rare, they're powerful, and you will feel a noticeable difference if you get them for your characters. Prioritize this. That said, finally, number 10, don't neglect gold income through missions and dispatches either. If you have the option to get a good chunk of gold from a mission, or there's a dispatch that's going to give you a good chunk of gold, definitely put some effort into completing that if at all possible. Especially as you progress through the game and your army grows, things are going to get much more expensive to maintain. Keeping their levels up through the training yard, teaching them new skills, giving them priority training, forging new gear, potentially paying NPCs to join you or do other tasks to get reputation. Gold is a commodity in Convallaria, and you will burn through it at an alarming rate. Take the opportunity. If a mission tells you that it's going to give you some gold, get it. If there's going to be a dispatch mission that's going to give you a bunch of gold consecutively, week over week, do it. If you have a bunch of random items and like old weapons and things sitting around and there happens to be a merchant in town who's got 1,000 gold on him, try and get that 1,000 gold off of him for some junk gear. Any way that you can to get more gold, do not be afraid to do so. You will absolutely put it to good use faster than you would probably be even comfortable with. And that, my friends, are my next 10 and a half, I guess, tips for the campaign mode Spiral of Destinies for Sword of Convallaria. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you found something of use for you in here. And do let me know if you have any personal tips that you would like to see the community at large know. Drop it in the comments. People can find it there. And then if we get enough good tips put together via the community, then I can put together another video and disseminate it out to everyone even more easily. I have plenty of plans for future content for Sword of Convallaria on the horizon, character builds, talking about that crazy way I was able to manipulate the way a mission was able to flow to actually kind of break the game, discussion about the story, different routes, all that type of good stuff. So keep it tuned here if you've been enjoying Sword of Convallaria. And again, if you wouldn't mind supporting the channel, please do subscribe and consider joining these fine folks that you see scrolling along the right-hand side of the screen right now. One of the benefits of being a member or a patron is that you get your name up here on a video every week, sometime between Friday and Sunday. It's supposed to be Friday. It doesn't always work out that way, but every week, as well as special things like being able to submit questions for the monthly Q&A and other benefits depending on what tier of the Patreon that you're at. If you'd help me out, it'd be massively appreciated. It's never required, but especially during the summer when revenue is down a little bit, the direct support from you guys makes even more of a difference than it already does. So thank you to anyone who decides to join, and thank you to everyone who has been continuing to support all this time. You guys mean the world. With all that said, though, I'm going to wrap this one up here. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.